All right, Jamison. So let's start with talking about this listing that we both have. So this is the Lumber Baron Inn and Gardens. This is in Denver, Colorado. The asking price, it is up for 3.2. It says it has 5 keys. What does that mean? What are keys?
So in the hospitality industry, which is hotels, resorts, Airbnbs, each key represents a unit or a room. And in the multifamily industry, we call those doors. So we'll say, okay, there's 100 doors. For hospitality, it's 100 keys.
Gotcha. So this is like, this property is beautiful. Is this like an old inn or like an Airbnb or something?
Yeah, so built in 1890.
Wow.
And I think this is an interesting thing to talk about. So when you see this listing at first glance, a lot of people who might be a little nostalgic might say, "Man, I would love to own something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. We'd have some income. We could potentially live there, make it a bed and breakfast."
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing on that idea is if you talk to anyone who's ever done it before, and I have a similar property that's 8 keys, 4 hours south of here in Mexico. If you've talked to someone who's actually done it before, you have a much different perspective. So let's just kind of talk about some of my first thoughts when you look at this. So the first thing, built in 1890, there's going to be a lot of maintenance on this building. So you're going to get the character, but you're also going to get the maintenance. You're going to have, in most cases, old plumbing, old electrical, old roofing. You're always going to be dealing with, if you want to do anything on the inside, adding electrical outlets, anything like that, that's going to be a lot of work because it looks like it's a block building. If it's a historical building, a lot of that you're going to have to get approvals for. The other thing with 5 keys, it's not large enough to have an on-site manager. So this means you're going to need to self-managing it.
How many keys do you have to have an on-site manager?
You kind of have to back into what would my revenue be from the property.
Gotcha.
So an on-site manager, if you're going to have a good one in the Denver market, you're going to need to spend $70,000 or $80,000 a year.
Wow.
So 5 keys is just not going to be enough. If each of these units, generates, I would say, I'm guessing on the aggressive side, $40,000 or $50,000 a year in revenue, times 5 keys, you're not nearly enough to be able to spend $70,000 or $80,000 on a manager. So you're going to need to manage it yourself. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And the cost is quite high. So that's over $500,000 a key. So $533,000 per key. Very high cost for this property. You're going to have to compete with really nice hotels to be able to generate the type of revenue. I mean, you're going to have to compete with almost like the Four Seasons. I'm not even talking like a Hilton or a Marriott. You're at the high end to be able to recoup the cost. So first blush is this is not a good investment.
Really?
You're going to be you must really love the property. You want to live in the property and rent it out, which if you've never done that, that's not that much fun. If you live in the property and let's say you live in this and you still have 5 keys upstairs, you don't want to live there.
No.
Because those people are going to be knocking on your door all night. Beautiful property. I like it. I like old properties. My home is 100 years old, and I like the characteristics and how unique they are. If I had a friend sent this to me, which they did, I'm on the email list, and that's why I got this from Jeff, who's the broker there. This is not something you want to buy.
What is the difference between a multifamily investment that has many units, let's say, Venture on Maryland that you guys just purchased, 78 units, and something like this, that this is short-term rentals, there's only 5 keys. What is the difference there in terms of an investor going into those kind of purchases?
There's a lot more management work on hospitality, hotel properties, Airbnb properties. They are a lot of work. You can generate more income from those properties, because if you just think about it, so there's 30 days in a month. Let's say you're getting at the higher end, $300 a night, which is not cheap for a hotel or an old property like this. You're never going to have 100% occupancy. If you can get 70% occupancy, that's good. So $300 a night times 20 nights in a month, you could potentially generate $6,000 from one key. So that's pretty good income.
Yeah.
To generate that type of income, though, is a lot of work. You're going to have to be doing a lot of conversations with people on Airbnb platforms. You're going to have to be doing a lot of advertising. You're going to have to be integrated with the booking.com and Travelocity and all of those to be able to get the booking, and you have to pay them a bunch of it.
Yeah.
So the upside is with hospitality is the income could be potentially greater.
Gotcha.
The downside is it's a whole lot more work, and you have more risk, and you have more potential reward. The other side of it you have to watch for on hospitality is it's a very seasonal business. So if you think of a place like Park City, Utah, they have a lot of visitors in the winter. Then they have not so many in the spring and fall, and then they have a lot in the summer, because though it kind of has that dual season. So that's great because you can generate cash flow both seasons. There are many places that have visitors in the winter. There might be near a ski resort, not so many in the summer. And there's even more that have a lot in the summer, but then the rest of the year, the other 7-8 months of the year, there's nothing. So you might make good money for a few months, and then it drops off. An apartment building is much more steady. You're going to get that income on a monthly basis. They're signing a year lease. And then the last thing you have to remember with hospitality is called FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. You have to supply all the furniture. You have to put in the towels. You have to make sure everything is working properly in the unit, coffee maker, all of those things. And when they break down, you have to replace them, and that always costs money. So it's a much more fun business in some ways, the hospitality business, but I would encourage anyone who wants to try to go in the hotel business to start small, see how it goes before you go and try to buy a 50 unit or a 100 key building, because it is a very difficult business.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, this property is really beautiful. It's in a great area. It's in Denver. So, I mean, do you think that is what's contributing to the 3.2 price tag?
I think they have no chance of selling it to a good buyer for 3.2.
Wow.
They'd probably have a better chance of selling it to someone who just wants to move into their primary residence.
Interesting.
Because if they're marketing it and it is an inn, it's going to be impossible to have that pencil where it makes money. To your point, it might just be somebody, they find the perfect buyer who just falls in love with the property. They want to move in it, and they think it would be fun to run a little hotel in their home. Yeah. And good luck to them doing that.
Good luck. Well, there are those people out there, even though, we are looking at this other article that's talking about, spring sales are down despite record prices. So let's kind of get into this article as well. So in the article, it says the National Association of Realtors says home sales in June fell to a 10-month low, even though spring, is usually the busiest time of the year. I mean, what factors do you think caused this drop-off during this busy time?
Yeah, we're in a correction period for real estate, for single-family homes, and we have been for several months, maybe a year and a half now, where we're finally starting to see listings stay on the market longer. In our market in Phoenix, we have 25,000, 30,000 range homes on the market for sale now, which is more of a healthy buyer's market. So buyers can now really negotiate on prices. They can get better deals. And it also just points to there are fewer buyers now not because they don't want to own homes, but because they can't afford the homes at the current interest rates. And so the spring sales season, which real estate agents really look forward to because the winter is slow, people don't want to move during the holidays, spring should come around and things should pop, was a lot lower than expected, and the market is still correcting.
That's interesting. Yeah, we're going now into fall, into back to school. So this isn't really the time that people want to buy either in this transitional time. So yeah, it's past. It's kind of gone.
Yeah, if kids get in school, that's that's another time where people don't want to move during that time. So there'll be a little bit of movement, before kids start school. In Arizona, school starts in some cases into July.
Yeah.
In most places, school doesn't start till September. But the summer season is also a good time for transactions, and that's starting to come to a close. So we'll see how the second quarter worked out. But we do know that the market's slowing down. Interest rates really haven't budged, and not significantly enough to bring more buyers into the pool.
Yeah. This article also points to the fact that even though it was a slow season, the national median existing home price has risen to over 435,000. Is this price growth sustainable? Is it going to keep going up? What do you think?
Yeah, that's kind of the dichotomy is even though sales are down, the median sales price is up. Mm-hmm. So it also points to the fact that sellers, if they can't get the sell price that they want, they're just staying put.
Yep.
There are some scenarios where people have to sell. Maybe it's an inheritance situation, a partnership situation. They're transferring jobs and they need to be at the new job and they need to sell. Mm-hmm. But I think those are most of the transactions that are actually happening. Sellers who don't have to sell, they might put their house on the market for a period of time and they're choosing not to. So that's why you saw some of the increases. Once we start seeing the increase in the median decreases in the median sales price, then that would signify that sellers are lowering the price and executing. And I think we'll start to see that going forward.
Yeah, I actually have personal friends who I know who they bought their second home and they've been trying to sell the home that they were in before, and they've lowered the price, and they still can't sell it. And they've gotten to a place where they're like, well, we're not lowering it anymore. We're just going to hold it because it's not worth it to us to sell it for lower than this. Yeah. So they're holding on to a secondary property just because they'd rather wait.
Yeah, there's always that price that folks have in their head. We call it strike price. If I can sell it for this, we'll do it. And if we can't, we'll figure out another plan. There's other things they can do. They can just continue to hold it. Maybe they rent it out, something else.
Yeah.
And there'll be a point where either interest rates need to come down to make the homes more affordable, or sellers will have to capitulate and start bringing the prices down in order for the market to start moving again.
Okay, let's move on to Taylor Morrison securing $3 billion for build-to-rent opportunities. So Taylor Morrison, he's a Scottsdale-based home builder, and he just got $3 billion for his initiative Yardly, which is the build-to-rent. Talk a little bit about what a build-to-rent initiative even is.
Yeah, so this really was a trend that has gotten popular the last few years as more people were priced out of the home buying market, but they didn't necessarily want to live in a traditional apartment building. Groups like Taylor Morrison saw the opportunity to go out and build these communities. So they are, in some cases, single-family homes with separate roofs, little yards, or they're townhouse style with connecting walls. But the real intent behind them is to give people the feel of home ownership, but they are still renting.
Yeah.
Some of these projects haven't done great, and others have done very well. There was a lot of new supply of these that came out in certain areas, and real estate is always local, so you'll see some areas where these projects leased up very quickly. You're paying more in rent than you will in an apartment building because you do have, as the landlord, you're covering the cost of separate roof, separate air conditioning, separate utilities, just like the regular homeowner has those higher costs. So they have to pass that cost into the rent. What's significant about this is, as one of the larger contributors to this build-to-rent trend, they raised additional capital, significant capital, to go do additional projects. So that's a good sign in how these projects are doing. The other nice thing about this is, in some cases, you can convert these later to sell them off as condos or single family homes. If that market comes back and they would be more affordable at that period of time, you can have that planned in from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the financing, because to me, this seems like a huge amount of financing that they secured for this. I mean, $3 billion. Is it actually not that big of a number when it comes to real estate?
Well, $3 billion is a lot of money, but it's, real estate is a very capital intensive business. So you can do a lot with $3 billion in a few communities, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be building all over the country with that amount of capital,
Right.
especially if they're building from the ground up. We talked about a transaction earlier that was a $250 million transaction, and that was 800 units, apartment units.
Yeah.
So money goes fast. So in real estate, and it has to be invested in the long term to be able to get a return on that. And especially if you're building from the ground up, it's going to take several years just to get those properties vertical. It's a good announcement. $3 billion is a lot of money, but it doesn't maybe sound as big as it would in some other industries.
Gotcha. And this is all local. This is right here in Scottsdale. It is a Scottsdale-based home builder, so that's exciting. That kind of money is being spent out here.
Yeah, and that group also builds homes, single-family homes to sell for buyers who want to buy them. And they've shifted part of their strategy to now build these build-to-rent communities because folks can't afford the purchase.
That leads to my last question here, which is this build-to-rent model. Do you think that this is a long-term solution for people? Do you think people will stay in this with their families for long-term? Or do you think this is a stopgap until they can afford to own?
More people now are comfortable renting, not putting so much capital in their home, having some more capital on the side to travel, to have experiences.
Yeah.
And we can see already that the millennial generation is buying a lot later. They do want to buy at some point, but it's a lot later than prior generations. We'll see what happens with the demographics, but I think it's very possible that there'll be a generation where 50% rent their whole life.
Wow.
And historically, about 65% wanted to own a home, and the balance were renters. And I think that will continue to see that shift go down. It isn't a bad thing to rent. You know what your cost is going to be. If things break down, your landlord's going to take care of it.
Yep.
And some people can continue to move into a new place every few years, and they always live in a new apartment. So there's a bunch of benefits to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility. Like you said, you have that extra capital to spend. And so for neighborhood ventures, it's good. It bodes well for the multifamily.
Yeah, that's what we believe long term. We're a multifamily long term continues to be the place where the benefits from the fact that owning a home is too expensive. It's a long term investment view. Over the next 10 to 15 years, we believe that will continue.